Okay, so at the very beginning of this lesson, if you'll recall, I said everything in grammar has exceptions. At this point, I want to talk about some exceptions to the things I just presented in part 1. The major points I want to cover are nouns with atypical endings, nouns with irregular number forms that don't form plurals like you'd expect, nouns with irregular gender forms, so masculine nouns you'd expect to be feminine and vice versa, and finally, gender as it applies to groups. Unfortunately, there's a lot of overlap between those topics, so as much as I'd like to just go down that list in an easy, organized way, that's not always going to be possible. Some of these categories are covered in your book, so that will make those ones easier, but some aren't, so if you have questions about those, please just ask in the comments or in a private message to me. At the beginning of this lesson, we talked about the 4 possible noun endings in Italian: o, a, e, and e. Now I want to talk about nouns that don't have those endings. There are 2 main types here: nouns ending in an accented vowel and nouns ending in a consonant. The first group I want to talk about are nouns that end in an accented vowel. All of these are invariable nouns, meaning they don't have separate singular and plural forms. Nouns that end in a and u are almost always feminine. Typical examples would be un'università, 2 università, or una virtù, le 7 virtù. The most important e word is caffè, which is masculine, and it works the same way: un caffè, 4 caffè. There are also nouns that end in consonants, and those are, I'd say, uniformly words of foreign origin. Most of these are going to be words you'll use in conversation constantly. A huge majority of these nouns, certainly all the common ones, are masculine. Some examples are bar, autobus, film, and sport. These words are also invariable, so uno sport, 2 sport, and so on. Some nouns that end in consonants are abbreviations as well, which we'll touch on in a minute. There are 2 types of irregular number forms: invariable nouns, and nouns that change forms between singular and plural, but not in ways you'd expect. Invariable nouns have identical singular and plural forms, like the nouns I just went over. Most other invariable nouns are abbreviations. Again, a lot of really common words fall into this category. Abbreviations can end in a vowel or consonant and don't follow the regular gender patterns we talked about in part 1. If you see a noun with an ending other than o, a, e, or e, or if you're able to see from context that the gender of the noun is not what you'd expect, it is likely to be an abbreviation and therefore invariable. If you know a word is abbreviated, you can identify its gender by finding out what it's an abbreviation of. The gender of the abbreviated noun will always be the same. So many abbreviations have unusual genders as well. Your book lists some common ones that you should memorize. A second group of invariable nouns are those of Greek origin that end in cis in English. In Italian, these nouns end in zi in both singular and plural and are all feminine. Examples include un'analisi, una sintesi, una genesi, una tesi, and quite a few other less common ones. In addition to invariable nouns, there are a few types of nouns that have different spelling patterns for the plural. Nouns ending in ka or ga, such as amica or targa, end in ke and ge in the plural, and the spelling has to be changed to reflect that, as your book mentions on pagina 30. Also, on pagina 31, the book mentions that nouns ending in io usually just drop the o in the plural instead of adding a second e. The exception of this is if the e is stressed, so un negozio becomes 2 negozi, but uno zio becomes 3 zii. Nouns with irregular number forms that aren't invariable usually have irregular gender forms as well. One really common case is nouns ending with ista, including turista, barista, artista, and a ton of other words like this. All of these refer to people, so all have natural gender. If the person is female, these are just like other feminine nouns. Una turista due turiste. If the person is male, the plural ends in I instead of A, so un turista turns into due turisti. Whenever a masculine noun ends in A and isn't an abbreviation of a longer word, its plural will end in I just like other masculine plurals. There are other masculine nouns ending in A as well. Most have a Greek origin. Common examples include un problema, un tema, un gramma, un dramma, and un pianeta, with plurals problemi, temi, grammi, drammi, and pianeti. The last thing I want to touch on is using gender when speaking generically or referring to a group. In English, it's not PC to make an assumption about a person's gender, as in, a teacher accompanies her students on field trips, or a doctor spends a large percentage of his income on insurance. In Italian, though, you have to use one or the other, even in plural situations. In Italian, if the gender of a person is not known, if you're speaking generically, or if you're referring to a group of people that is not known to be 100% female, you'll use masculine nouns. So if a group of people is 90% female, the noun referring to all of them is still masculine. Only if a person is known to be female specifically, or a group is known to be 100% female, do you use a feminine noun in Italian. I'd like to say that we've covered all the ups and downs of noun forms, but we definitely haven't. I'm going to stop our discussion here because I don't want to give you information overload and want you to have a good chance to synthesize this information before giving you more. There are a bunch of good esercizi for this topic on pagina 31, so please do those for compiti. The answer key is here in the description of the video. As always, if you have any questions, please leave the questions in the comments or get in touch with me if you feel like you need additional help. Our next lesson will be about the articolo indeterminativo and will be much shorter, so please subscribe if you'd like to be alerted when I put that up. Thanks for watching and arrivederci.